At the Nuremberg trial of the major war criminals in 1945, a display table was set up to show Nazi atrocities: tattooed skin taken off bodies, a human skin lampshade, organs encased in glass. But excuse me, what is this? We have a close-up photo. It looks like two shrunken heads originating from the South American rainforest, likely purloined from a German anthropological museum at the end of the war. They are being used to frame the Nazis as head shrinkers. What government would engage in something that pathetic and dishonorable? The United States of America. We go to the Nuremberg transcripts found at a Yale University website. United States Prosecutor Thomas Dodd says to the court, "We do not wish to dwell on this pathological phase of the Nazi culture, but we do feel compelled to offer one additional exhibit, which we offer as exhibit number USA 254. This exhibit, which is on the table, is a human head with the skull bone removed, shrunken, stuffed, and preserved. The Nazis had one of their many victims decapitated after having had him hanged, apparently for fraternizing with a German woman, and fashioned this terrible ornament from his head." So we look at this picture, and we see the skin tone of this hand is quite different than the skin tone of this shrunken head. Maybe the process of shrinking a head changes the skin tone to be coincidentally the skin color of the Indians of the South American rainforest. And we look at the facial features. Maybe removing the skull bone of a Northern European man will change his facial features so that they become similar to facial features of Indians in the South American rainforest. And the hair color. We see the color of this hand, and the hair color here is black. Maybe a lot of Polish men had black hair, and a popular way to wear it was thick and wavy, not unlike the Indians in the South American rainforest. And maybe some barbers in Poland did the thing where they leave it long on top until right here, where they then just chop it off. I happen to have a Polish movie shot in 1939, and you get a glimpse of Polish society, and it even has a barbershop scene.
Szanownego pana poznałem.
To pan ma doskonałą pamięć.
Tak, to było 5-6 lat temu. Przyjechał pan do Warszawy z kanadyjską drużyną hokejową.
Tak.
Świetnie pan. Moje uszanowanie panu. Dudek, jak się masz?
Serwus Adaś, co ty tu robisz? Twój zakład?
Tak, wydzierżawiłem go na semę. Ja pojęcia nie mam. Ojeju, ja mu mecz przegram, ja jestem patolog.
A niech pan się nie obawia. Widzi pan, mnie bardzo zależy na tym, żeby przez pewien czas grać rolę fryzjera.
We go to the Schickler Gallery of Fine Art website. They are selling the photographs of a Soviet Union Nuremberg photographer, Yevgeny Kalday, shown here. One of them is a photo of U.S. Prosecutor Thomas Dodd with the shrunken head. If you didn't know this was a frame-up, you'd interpret this photo as a philosophical moment of a righteous person contemplating evil. But when you know what's really going on, then you see Thomas Dodd as evil. But I don't really believe in evil. I think it's all about understanding people. Dodd presented these heads to the court, and that increased his fame. The intoxicating effect of this maybe allowed him to believe it all. Or maybe Thomas Dodd was just gullible for evil stories. In the USA, gullibility to believe in evil is related to TV, movies, and the Christian religion. Christianity, with its infantile conception of good and evil, and TV and movies with their infantile caricatures of evil as the basis for most storylines. Take away the D and you go from church to TV. Add a dose of testosterone and you have gullible American men easily influenced to be pro-war. All the media needs to do is portray someone as evil. Smarter people could have planted these heads in the Buchenwald concentration camp and presented a story to the gullible Americans. We go to the movie Judgment at Nuremberg, written by screenwriter Abi Mann. In the following scene, the actor who plays a military prosecutor puts on a film strip, which is in fact real footage of the Nuremberg table. Abi Mann, who is Jewish, was formerly known as Abraham Goodman. He won an Academy Award for writing this.
Department of the Waffen SS. A lampshade made from human skin. Skin being used for paintings, many having an obscene nature. The heads of 2 Polish laborers, shrunken to 1/5 their normal size. A human pelvis used as an ashtray.
Let's compare something.
A lampshade made from human skin.
And they had kids in incubators, and they were thrown out of the incubators so that Kuwait could be systematically dismantled.
Do you see a gullibility to believe in evil thing going on here? And can you see how these atrocity stories are kind of used against people? Let's look at the incubator story for a moment. It brings us to Tom Lantos, a member of the U.S. House of Representatives. He's one of the 5 Hungarian Jewish Holocaust survivors featured in Steven Spielberg's documentary called The Last Days, which, similar to Abi Mann's work, won an Academy Award. Tom Lantos moved to the USA when he was 19, changing his name to the American-sounding Tom Lantos. He was formerly known as Lantos Tomasz Pater.
This is Congressman Tom Lantos, and I represent the Peninsula and San Francisco.
In 1990, after the Iraq invasion of Kuwait, the American people were only semi-willing to go to war, not enough so for a war resolution to pass in the Senate. Tom Lantos stepped in. He had been the founder of the Congressional Human Rights Caucus. Caucus means a meeting of the members of a legislative body belonging to a particular political party to decide policy. He set up a hearing, and this is who he had speak.
While I was there, I saw the Iraqi soldiers come into the hospital with guns. They took the babies out of the incubators, took the incubators, and left the children to die on the cold floor.
Notice the emotional similarity to Holocaust stories you've heard. This witness, who appeared anonymous at the hearing, known only as Nayira, turned out to be the daughter of the ambassador of Kuwait. Her testimony was rehearsed and coached by the American public relations firm Hill and Knowlton, which had close ties to Tom Lantos. His Human Rights Foundation was even in the same building as the PR firm. Thanks to this testimony, a Senate war resolution passed by just 5 votes. Thanks, Tom. George Bush Sr. isn't evil. He's just gullible to believe in evil like the rest of us. Amnesty International also fell for the incubator story. Tom Lantos' 1990 congressional hearing has a lot of similarities to a March 1945 congressional hearing. World War II in Europe was not yet over at the time, but 2 Jewish members of the House of Representatives, Sol Bloom as head of the House Committee on Foreign Affairs, and Emanuel Seller, want to get the ball rolling on plans for punishment of war criminals. With Joseph Thon's speech at this hearing, we have our equivalent to the Kuwaiti ambassador's daughter. Thon says to the committee, "The German people murdered in cold blood in excess of 6 million European Jews." But how could he know that? It's 3 weeks before the Americans will take over the Dachau concentration camp, and 3 weeks before the British will take over the Bergen-Belsen camp. It is 6 weeks before the Soviets will issue their special commission report on Auschwitz. The Germans still have an intact fighting army, and the Allies haven't yet captured any top Nazi officials or camp administrators. How could he know the 6 million number? Thon testifies before the committee of a grandchild thrown alive into an oven of 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit and tells them that no German mother hesitated to put on her child's feet the shoes of a child who, a week or 2 weeks ago, was burned and whose shoes were torn off his feet by a beast in the form of a German soldier or guard. And those German Gretchens who asked that 200 cradles be sent to them from Poland for their children, cradles of Jewish babies. He goes on to accuse the Germans of bacteriological warfare and then tells the committee of the sufferings which mothers experienced when the bodies of their little babies were torn before their eyes. See the connections to the incubator story? He then closes his speech mentioning the 6 million Jews again. The only way the 6 million number could be mentioned that early on is if this was a myth in the first place. After all, it's not like the pre-war Jewish population of Europe was 6 million, and thus you assume they're all dead and come up with the 6 million number. For one, because 6 million wasn't the pre-war Jewish population of Europe, and two, historians didn't come up with the number that way. They came up with the 6 million number from interrogations, reports, and documents obtained after the war, which were tailor-made to match the myth, none of which they had at the time of Thon's speech. The sad way of the world is that if you defame others, lots of fame will come to you and your children. Prosecutor Thomas Dodd, for instance, went on to become a U.S. Senator. He has a baseball stadium named after him and a research center. And his son, he's a U.S. Senator also, and he's running for President of the United States.
Hi, my name is Chris Dodd. I want to introduce myself to you this afternoon because I'm filing papers today formally to be a candidate for the presidency, and I wanted to introduce myself to you. I'm a senator from Connecticut. Of the Nuremberg trials, when 22 of Hitler's top henchmen were sentenced for crimes against humanity. Let me tell you why that particular historical event is important to me. I was a year old, 1945, when my father left home for a year and a half to go to a place called Nuremberg. Well, why not? Why not? Because America's always stood for something more. We are tested at such moments, and at Nuremberg we reaffirmed and affirmed our humanity and our commitment to high principles. 20 million men, women, and children. The world asked, when you consider their atrocities, why not just give in to vengeance? Certainly you can almost understand why they would, considering the brutality of these people. Why not just shoot the Nuremberg defendants, as Winston Churchill wanted to do? Instead of sending a team of lawyers to Nuremberg, why not just send a team of executioners to these people? Why are we going to give to them something more than they gave to their victims? Well, why not? Why not? Because America's always stood for something more. We are tested at such moments, and at Nuremberg we reaffirmed and affirmed our humanity and our commitment to high principles.
Some people might say, those evil Jews, they lie about the Holocaust to steal a piece of land in the Mideast and to get victim status for themselves, and then they lie about the Arabs to make the USA fight their enemies. But guess what? Jews are not evil either. We are just seeing Jewish group evolutionary strategy. This circle represents Jews in the United States, and this circle represents everybody else in the United States. If this group is totally harmonious with this group, then this group will intermarry and assimilate into this population and lose their identity, which means a diminishing of this Jewish group. If there's some bad vibes, however, between these two groups, that keeps assimilation from happening, which is good for Jewish group evolutionary strategy. Too many bad vibes, though, lead to persecution of Jews, which is bad for the Jewish group. So how can a small outnumbered group manage this situation? By having members of their group rise with precision accuracy to places of power to manage this group. Here's an example. We go to the San Francisco Chronicle on the day Congress gave war powers to George Bush to invade Iraq. The front page article is written by Edward Epstein, who I'm guessing is Jewish. He tells us, Congress provided President Bush a solid victory Thursday in his effort to rid Iraq of its weapons of mass destruction when the House and the Senate voted overwhelmingly to allow the president to use military force against Saddam Hussein's regime. We look at the masthead of the paper that day and see that of the top 4 people, 3 are Jewish. Who reads the San Francisco Chronicle?
This is Congressman Tom Lantos, and I represent the Peninsula and San Francisco.
The people who then vote for Tom Lantos. And Lantos was a leader in the resolution that gave George Bush the power to strike Iraq. We've already seen that Lantos was in a key place just before the 1991 Gulf War, and in 2007 he also is. As head of the House Committee on Foreign Affairs, it handles relations of the United States with foreign nations generally. And its list of members evokes the masthead of the San Francisco Chronicle. Its Jewish group evolutionary strategy precision placement. There's an even better way to keep this group from assimilating into this group and to prevent this group from persecuting this group. Instill a legend that will work magic in both populations. Here is the legend. Once upon a time, a large group, not unlike this group, tried to wipe this group off the face of the earth, and never again will that be allowed to happen. This legend instills a cohesive identity in this group and paranoia and anger toward this larger group, while at the same time instilling in this group compassion and sympathy. The legend largely defines evil for both groups and labels anyone in this group who complains about this group as having a mental illness. This population instinctively believes the legend, in part because it helps them, and in part because they themselves have been lied to. And this population completely believes the legend due to their gullibility to believe in evil. The legend helps most members of this group support the destruction of the Palestinians and Iraqis, while all along feeling themselves to be righteous victims. The legend is a Jewish group evolutionary strategy. Professor Kevin MacDonald's book, Culture of Critique, is the place to learn about Jewish group evolutionary strategy, though he himself is not a Holocaust denier. People might say, wait, are you saying the Holocaust never happened? What about Auschwitz? What about the photos of the stacks of bodies? Could millions of witnesses all be in cahoots with one another? Did 6 million Jews just disappear out of thin air? Whatever your question, download this free book from vho.org. It's Professor Arthur Butt's Hoax of the 20th Century, which came out in 1976. Search out your question using the keyword search feature that PDF documents offer. If you're a member of either one of these groups and you're not down with lies that define evil and justify war, then have your own energy be about truth, peace, and understanding, and put out that good energy. We go to wikipedia.com and look up Saddam Hussein's son, Uday Hussein, and we read that Uday purchased or stole approximately 1,200 luxury vehicles, including a Rolls-Royce Corniche valued at over $200,000. Uday is reported to have arrived at a polling station during a referendum on his father's regime in a pink Rolls-Royce. Wow, pink Rolls-Royce. Either the USA is a beacon of righteousness that kills evil people in this world, or we lie about our enemies.
The whole world are looking at General Amin and Uganda as a whole. What will be the future of Uganda? The people are looking at this.
Idi Amin was president of the African nation of Uganda in the 1970s. By the late 70s, he was notorious as a pathological psychotic killer. Ask yourself why anyone would want to lie about him. We look at footage from an early 70s French documentary on Amin to hear him in his own words. Idi Amin will mention Golda Meir. She was Prime Minister of Israel, and he also mentions General Moshe Dayan, the Israeli Defense Minister at the time.
But I'm trained as a paratrooper in Israel. But I have got a very good brain, and even General Dayan knows that I am very good field officer.
You know Dayan very well?
I know him, and He has been my friend. He has been giving me dinner, luncheon in his house. If I go to Israel, I used to stay with Dayan. He brings Air Force band playing for me. We stay together. But I must make it absolutely truth. The reason why I chased them from Uganda was because of the economy of Uganda. Uganda was going to be bankrupt. That is the reason why I chased away the Israelis.
And you said you were friends with Golda Meir.
Yes, because she used to give me very good entertainment when I go to Israel.
Then you changed completely from an Israeli alliance to the Arab alliance.
I changed from Israeli alliance because Israeli are criminals and that they are not trusted people. They don't tell the world the truth. They were taken to Palestine as refugees, and then they changed Palestine to become a state of Israel by force of arms given to them by Americans and the British.
Idi Amin. Why would anybody want to lie about him?
I came so close to the Arab because Arab found that I am most influential leader in Africa, in the continent, and also I am a leader who speaks the truth.
Did your Muslim religion take part into your choice of the Arabs?
It is not because of the Muslim, because the people who broke relationship with Israel, they are not only Muslims, they are Christians, but they have seen the truth, and everybody listen for me. And even in OAU, if I don't speak, every leader try to ask why, and I must speak like in a non-aligned conference in Algeria. I was not feeling well, I did not speak, but 15 minutes before the conference closed, I was brought to come and give a speech. I gave very good speech, including Castro broke relationship with Israel after my speech.
So Idi Amin kicked the Jews out of Uganda. He allied with the Arab world. He gave international speeches against the Israelis. But there's more.
Would you accept some Palestinian hijackers with their hostages in Uganda?
The Palestinians?
Yes, I read in the papers they were asking to be sent to Uganda or to Libya.
If they are sent here, I will welcome them. But they are welcome.
In Uganda?
Yes. If they want to come to Uganda, they are welcomed in Uganda. They have got a representative.
Having expelled the Israelis, General Amin installed the Palestinians in the former Israeli embassy.
But the people in some planes are innocent.
But you must not go in the airplane which is belonging to Israelis, to Portuguese, to South Africa. If you use this airplane, then it is up to you. You must choose, because the airplane is booked in advance.
Then in 1976, he let hijackers land a jet in his country in order to exchange the jet passengers with Palestinians in Israeli jails. In the subsequent Israeli raid on Entebbe airport, the one Israeli soldier killed by Ugandan troops happened to be the brother of Benjamin Netanyahu. He later became the Prime Minister of Israel. 8 months after the hijacking, here's the cover of Time magazine. In the article we read, "The prevailing sense of horror is perhaps best described by the apocryphal tale of a freezer in Amin's house that contains the heads of his most distinguished victims, including the former Chief Justice. From time to time, the story goes, Amin walks over to the freezer to lecture his frozen audience about the evils of their ways. There's those human heads, again."